Imagine waking up tomorrow and seeing this headline: U.S. government announces full public access to Area 51. No restrictions. Every hangar, every underground level, every classified archive, no redactions, no military escorts deciding what you can and can't look at. Just open doors. Now you might think you know what's inside. Aliens, right? Little green guys in jars? That's the meme version. But here's the thing. What's actually confirmed to be behind those fences is in many ways far stranger and far more dangerous than any alien conspiracy. And what would happen if it all came out at once? That's what we're about to walk through. Because this isn't just about seeing cool planes. This is about what happens when the most secretive facility on Earth suddenly has nothing left to hide. Let's set the stage. Area 51 sits on a dry salt flat called Groom Lake, about 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas, deep inside the Nevada Test and Training Range. The CIA and the Air Force acquired the site back in 1955 for a single purpose: to develop and test the U-2 spy plane in absolute secrecy. A Lockheed test pilot named Tony Levier flew over the lakebed with a team from the CIA, spotted an old abandoned airstrip from World War II, and landed right on the cracked desert floor. That moment, a small plane touching down on a forgotten runway in the middle of nowhere, was the birth of what would become the most classified piece of real estate on the planet. And for decades after that, the US government didn't even admit it existed. Not once. Not publicly. The CIA didn't formally acknowledge Area 51 by name until June 2013, when a Freedom of Information Act request forced the release of a 407-page internal history of the U-2 program. 60 years of silence broken by a stack of paper. But what that paper revealed is where it gets interesting. During the late 1950s and 1960s, the U-2 and its successor, the A-12 Oxcart, which eventually evolved into the legendary SR-71 Blackbird, were flying at altitudes above 60,000 feet. At the time, commercial airliners cruised around 20,000 feet. Military jets topped out around 40,000. So when people on the ground looked up and saw something glinting in the sun, way, way higher than anything they thought possible, they had no explanation. They reported it as a UFO. And according to the CIA's own declassified documents, these high-altitude test flights accounted for more than half of all UFO sightings during that entire period. Think about that. The government was literally creating the UFO phenomenon by accident, and then covering it up with weather balloon stories, which only made the conspiracies worse. It was a feedback loop of secrecy and speculation that lasted for generations. Now, the gates open, and the first thing the world experiences isn't revelation, it's chaos. Picture the scene. Within hours of the announcement, every major highway leading toward the Nevada desert is gridlocked. We know what this looks like because we've already had a dress rehearsal. In the summer of 2019, a college student named Maddie Roberts created a joke Facebook event called Storm Area 51. They can't stop all of us. The plan, if you could call it that, was to Naruto run past the guards, arms back, head down, anime style, and just overwhelm the perimeter with sheer numbers. Over 2 million people clicked going. Another 1.5 million said interested. And even though it was clearly a meme, the response from the government was anything but funny. The FBI convened a formal interagency meeting. Representatives from the Bureau of Land Management, the Department of Defense, and the Nevada National Security Site all showed up. Dozens of law enforcement agencies across multiple counties mobilized. And buried in the operational documents that were later obtained through public records requests, there's a detail that still gives people chills. The base had automated deadly force countermeasures in place. Not soldiers with guns. Automated systems. On the actual day, only about 150 people showed up at the gates and nobody got through. 5 people were arrested. The military had spent an estimated $11 million preparing for what was essentially a meme. Now imagine that same energy, but real. Not 150 people, millions. Because this time, the doors are actually open. And the tiny town of Rachel, Nevada, population 56, is suddenly ground zero for the biggest crowd event in American history. There are no hotels, no infrastructure. The nearest gas station is a dot on the map. Cell towers collapse under the load within the first hour. People are camping in the desert, temperatures swinging from scorching during the day to near freezing at night. Rattlesnakes, scorpions, no shade for miles. The logistics alone are a nightmare before anyone even sets foot inside the base. But eventually, the first wave of visitors makes it through, and here's where it gets real. The first thing you'd notice is the sheer scale of the facility. Massive hangars, some of them among the largest enclosed structures in the country. Runways stretching for miles across the lake bed. Support buildings, radar installations, fuel depots. And one detail that perfectly captures the absurdity of the place. Every single worker commutes by air. There's a fleet of unmarked white Boeing 737s that fly daily from a secret terminal at Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas. The planes have no airline name, no logo, just a red stripe along the windows. The call sign is Janet, rumored to stand for just another non-existent terminal. Even the flight attendants need top-secret security clearances, and once the planes enter restricted airspace, they switch to classified call signs. It's an entire airline that officially doesn't exist, shuttling hundreds of people to a base that officially didn't exist, to work on projects that officially don't exist. Okay, but what are those projects? This is where the scenario gets genuinely unsettling, because the things we know about, the ones that are confirmed, already sound like science fiction. In early 2022, satellite imagery from Planet Labs captured something unprecedented. An exotic Delta Wing aircraft sitting on the apron of a massive hangar at the southern end of Groom Lake. It was roughly 65 feet long, 50 feet wide, with no visible tail and elegantly curved leading edges. It looked like nothing anyone had seen before. It appeared in one set of images and was gone days later, moved inside or concealed before the next satellite pass. The people who run Area 51 know exactly when every imaging satellite crosses overhead, and they schedule their operations accordingly. The fact that this aircraft was caught in the open at all was basically a miracle. And then, in March 2025, the mystery got a name. President Trump announced that Boeing had been awarded the contract for the F-47, America's sixth-generation fighter, under the Next Generation Air Dominance program. It was also revealed that DARPA had overseen two secret X-plane demonstrators, one built by Boeing, which first flew in 2019, and another by Lockheed Martin, which flew in 2022, both logging hundreds of flight hours at Groom Lake. The exotic Delta Wing aircraft spotted on satellite imagery suddenly had context. And the F-47. It's designed to fly alongside autonomous drone wingmen called collaborative combat aircraft, using sensor fusion and networking technology that makes the F-22 Raptor look like a museum piece. The first production airframe is already under construction, with a first flight targeted for 2028. But here's the thing, that's just one program. Area 51 runs multiple classified programs simultaneously at varying levels of maturity. High-speed flight, unmanned systems, advanced stealth, electronic warfare, hypersonics. And then there's something most people don't even think about: foreign material exploitation. During the Cold War, the US secretly acquired Soviet MiG fighter jets through defections, intelligence operations, and back-channel deals, and flew them at Area 51 to study their weaknesses. Declassified documents confirm that American engineers tested the design, performance, and limitations of these enemy aircraft in a program so classified that even the pilots who flew them operated under code names. The goal was simple and brutal. When US pilots met these planes in actual combat, they'd already know every blind spot, every structural limit, every maneuver the aircraft couldn't handle. That program didn't end with the Cold War. If you connect the dots, the continued expansion of the base, the new hangars, the ongoing flights, it's almost certain that captured or acquired aircraft, radar systems, and weapons technology from current adversaries are being reverse engineered at Groom Lake right now. We just don't know whose. And that's not even the weirdest part. There's also the radar cross-section testing infrastructure. Fields of pylons where aircraft and prototypes are mounted like specimens on pins, then blasted with radar signals to measure exactly how visible they are. The base essentially has a laboratory for making things invisible, and it's been operating continuously since the late 1950s when a radar test facility was first established there by a defense contractor. So when the public walks through those hangars, they're not just seeing cool planes. They're seeing decades of intelligence operations laid bare, physical evidence of espionage programs that governments would go to war over, technology that foreign nations didn't even know we had. And now suddenly everyone on Earth does. And that's when the real crisis begins. Within 48 hours, every intelligence agency on the planet is in overdrive. Not just ours, theirs. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. They now have a complete catalog of America's most closely guarded aerospace capabilities. Stealth geometries that took decades to develop, radar-absorbing materials, sensor architectures, drone autonomy algorithms, the operating parameters of the F-47 and whatever else was hiding in those hangars. This isn't just embarrassing, it's a strategic catastrophe. The entire concept of deterrence is built on the idea that your adversary doesn't know exactly what you can do. When they do know, they can engineer countermeasures. They can redesign their air defenses. They can close the gap. Decades of technological advantage evaporated in a news cycle. Defense contractors' stock prices crater overnight. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon. Their black program divisions are suddenly exposed. Proprietary designs, patented technologies, classified manufacturing processes, all of it in the open. Congressional hearings erupt. Allied nations demand to know what was developed using shared intelligence. NATO allies, Five Eyes partners, countries that contributed data and resources to joint programs. They're furious because their secrets got dragged into the sunlight too. And here's the part that really bends your brain. By the end of the first month, something strange happens. The conspiracy theories don't go away. They get worse. You'd think that opening every door and showing every file would settle things, right? But it doesn't work like that. The moment the public sees the confirmed technology, aircraft that look like they belong in a movie, drones that operate without human pilots, stealth systems that make planes invisible to radar, the immediate reaction for a lot of people isn't, "Oh, so that explains it." The reaction is, if they had all this, what else are they hiding? Because here's the psychological trap. Area 51 was never the only classified facility. It might not even be the most important one. There are installations scattered across the Nevada Test and Training Range, across the country, and potentially around the world, that don't have the same cultural footprint. No memes, no Facebook events, no Google Earth enthusiasts scanning for triangular towers. Speaking of which, back in April 2025, internet sleuths scanning Google Earth spotted a strange triangular tower inside Area 51 at very specific coordinates. It went massively viral. People called it alien technology. Reddit threads exploded, but satellite tracking showed the structure had actually been there since around 2005 or 2006, quietly sitting on what was probably a radar cross-section testing range. The most likely explanation? A pylon used to mount aircraft or components and measure their radar signature. The mundane truth was arguably more fascinating than the conspiracy, because it meant the base had been testing stealth configurations for 2 decades, and nobody noticed until Google updated its imagery. But that kind of nuance doesn't go viral. What goes viral is the mystery, and that's the deepest irony of this whole scenario. Area 51 was always, in a sense, a distraction. One Reddit user put it perfectly during the 2025 tower controversy. Area 51 is the facility they want you to know about so they can freely do whatever at all the other black sites nobody knows about. Whether that's true or not, it captures something real about how secrecy works. You don't hide your biggest secret behind the door everyone's staring at. You hide it behind the door nobody even knows exists. So, what happens when the most famous secret facility on Earth has no secrets left? The answer is both simpler and more disturbing than you'd expect. The conspiracies migrate. They find new hosts. people start scanning satellite imagery of every military installation on the planet. They start asking about Pine Gap in Australia, Porton Down in England, Kapustin Yar in Russia. The energy doesn't dissipate when it redirects, because the hunger for hidden knowledge isn't really about Area 51. It's about the fundamental tension between what governments know and what citizens are allowed to know. And opening one set of doors doesn't resolve that tension, it amplifies it. Meanwhile, the strategic damage is done. The United States has effectively shown its hand in the highest stakes poker game in history. Adversaries are already adapting. China's defense ministry is running simulations based on the exposed stealth geometries before the week is out. Russia's electronic warfare divisions are redesigning their radar systems to detect the exact profiles that were supposed to be invisible. Iran and North Korea are sharing notes. The next generation of threats won't be countered by the technology that was just exposed. It'll require something entirely new, developed from scratch, in a facility that doesn't have a Wikipedia page or a gift shop selling alien keychains on the highway outside. And here's where the human cost shows up. Thousands of people dedicated their careers to these programs. Engineers who spent 30 years perfecting a stealth coating. Test pilots who flew experimental aircraft, knowing that if something went wrong, no one could even acknowledge the crash happened. Intelligence officers who acquired foreign technology through operations that will never be decorated or recognized. For these people, the opening of Area 51 isn't a celebration of transparency. It's the erasure of their life's work. The projects they sacrificed marriages, health, and anonymity for, all of it rendered strategically useless in an afternoon. But maybe the most profound consequence is the one nobody predicted: the silence. After the initial media frenzy, after the cable news panels and the viral TikToks and the congressional shouting matches, there's a moment where the world collectively realizes something. The truth was never as satisfying as the mystery. The confirmed technology is extraordinary, yes, but it's comprehensible. It follows the laws of physics. It was built by human beings using materials you can find on the periodic table. There are no aliens. There are no interdimensional portals. There's no anti-gravity drive. And for a significant chunk of the population, that's the most disappointing discovery of all. The real secret of Area 51 turns out to be that it's a workplace. An insanely advanced, insanely expensive, insanely secretive workplace. But a workplace nonetheless. And workplaces don't satisfy the part of the human brain that craves the unknowable. And maybe that's the scariest thought of all. Not what's inside Area 51, but the fact that whatever replaces it will be buried so deep, so carefully, so far from any name we recognize that we won't even know to look for it. The next Groom Lake might not be in the desert. It might be underground, it might be offshore, it might be in orbit. And by the time anyone thinks to scan for a triangular tower on Google Earth, the work will already be done. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If they open those doors tomorrow, truly open them, no tricks, no omissions, would you actually want to see what's inside? Or is the mystery itself the thing that keeps us safe? If this scenario made you think, drop a comment and let me know. What do you think is the one thing they'd never let us see? And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. We've got more impossible scenarios coming that are going to blow your mind. Hit that bell so you don't miss them. See you in the next one.